My name is Christian Ashley, a seminary student and servant of God, and you are listening to the Let Nothing Move You podcast, a proud Anazal Ministries podcast.
Back, everyone, to the next episode of the Let Nothing Move You podcast. I'm your host, Christian Ashley. Today, we're going to be just going through Numbers 13. And I say just because I'm a little pressed for time right now. I'm up in Chicago, helping my brother move into a new place, so I'm just getting a little time away from everything, and just wanted to focus solely on this chapter so we can get stuff done that way and still have an episode released this week. So there's that. So without any further ado, we're going to be heading into Numbers 13, verses 1 through 16. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the people of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, every one a chief among them." So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran, according to the command of the Lord, all of the men who were heads of the people of Israel. And these were their names: from the tribe of Reuben, Shammua the son of Zakur; from the tribe of Simeon, Shaphat the son of Hori; from the tribe of Judah, Caleb the son of Jephunneh; from the tribe of Issachar, Igal the son of Joseph; from the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea the son of Nun; from the tribe of Benjamin, Palti the son of Raphu; from the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel the son of Sodi; from the tribe of Joseph, that is from the tribe of Manasseh, Gadi the son of Susi; from the tribe of Dan, Amiel the son of Gamali; from the tribe of Asher, Sethur the son of Michael; from the tribe of Naphtali, Nabi the son of Vapshi; from the tribe of Gad, Geuel the son of Maki. These were the names of the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land, and Moses called Hoshea the son of Nun Joshua. So we get to this point. We know that Israel is supposed to be entering the land at this point in time. However, we also know the story of how they don't go to where they're supposed to be. So what's happening here? Why is God having Moses send out scouts when he could just tell him everything he needed to know before he brought Israel to the promised land? Well, before we go any further, ask, has God always worked that way? Has he always revealed every step of every plan he's given to his people? Well, the answer is most assuredly no. Every now and then he gives a special revelation in our lives and tells us where we need to go, who we need to talk to. We get those nudges from him that bring us where we go. And for Moses especially, he talked to him, but he didn't tell him every single thing he needed to know. And part of this is going to be a test not only of Moses and the people of Israel, but the spies individually as they go out into the land to scout it. So if God tells them everything the day beforehand, some of them who were already weak were going to give up. But those who persevered, those who showed that they knew what they were up to, that they knew that God was on their side. Saul was actually there, saw the same terrifying things we're going to talk about there, and then did say, God's got this. Well, how much more is God glorified in that moment? By those people who are doing their job. And in truth, this is a group effort. Like every tribe, sans Levi, was involved in spying on the promised land. And Levi, for its own reasons, they're not supposed to be doing stuff like this, supposed to be ministering to the people. And each tribe had their own interest to consider in this moment, but far more important was for them to be as one for the love of God. This is supposed to be, like I said, a group effort, something they're all working together towards to get this done as a nation, to help their brethren know what's in the land, know what they can be looking forward to fighting against, so that they can prepare for it. And we're going to see how that ends up very poorly because of their fears. Now, before we go any further, there's a curious little verse here we get at the very end of there that says, hey, Moses called Hoshea the son of Nun Joshua. Now, Joshua has been introduced as Joshua for the entire time we've had him until about right now. From the beginning in Exodus, where, he's helping Moses, with the Amalekites and everything like that, he's called Joshua. So why is this brought in here? It's almost like a parenthetical. Well, this is once again part of the non-chronological nature of the stuff that's involved in Numbers. This is not, and then at this moment, Moses called Hoshea Joshua. This is, as a little parenthetical aside, hey, by the way, Moses did this to Joshua. When it happened, we don't know. But he did. And there's a reason for that, is that for his name being changed, we have Hoshea, which means salvation, a pretty good name. But Moses renames him Joshua, which means Yahweh saves, God saves. And that is crucially important for the man that Joshua is going to prove himself to be, and what he's going to continue being as we eventually get to the book of Joshua, as someone who's going to have to rely on Yahweh saving, God saving the people of Israel. So as someone that Moses was mentoring, he, had enough of an influence on his life. He says, hey, I'm going to rename you this because you're meant for important things, not because Moses is some egotist. I can rename whoever I want to, like how some cult leaders do. Much in the same way that we see Jesus like renaming Peter in the Gospels. It's like, hey, you're going to have this name. You also have this name that signifies what you're going to be doing for the church. You're going to be the rock, man. So that's what it means by that. So without further ado, we'll get into verses 17 through 24. Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, go up into the Negeb and go up into the hill country and see what the land is, and whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, whether they are few or many, and whether the land that they dwell in is good or bad, and whether the cities that they dwell in are camps or strongholds, and whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are trees in it or not. Be of good courage and bring some of the fruits of the land. Now the time was the season of the first ripe grapes. So they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Zin to Rehob near Lebo Hamath. They went up in the Negeb and came to Hebron. Ahiman, Shishai, and Talmai, the descendants of Anak, were there. Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. And they came to the valley of Eshcol and cut down from there a branch with a single cluster of grapes, and they carried it on a pole between two of them. And they also brought some pomegranates and figs. That place was called the Valley of Eshcol, which means cluster, because of the cluster that the people of Israel cut down from there. So right here, we have the men that have been selected for this mission doing what they were supposed to do initially. They're out there. They're doing exactly what has been brought upon them. Like, look into this land. Here, all these things I want you to look for in all these cities you go to, which is this very wide net, by the way, of where Moses is sending them. So that's a lot of work. And they come back with results initially. And this is where we get into the problem of this issue, is the fear of the men, that and the fear of Israelites in general, that were not for people who were following after God, who were seeking him out, who were actually listening to what he had to say. But before that, like, spying out the land is a part of basic military strategy. Like, you talk to any competent military leader of any shape or form, they're going to tell you, like, if you don't have a good spy network, if you don't have good logistics, if you don't have a lay of the land, you're going to lose poorly. There have been multiple times throughout world history where someone who was not prepared for a battle got wiped out because they didn't send out scouts, because they got overconfident, because they didn't do their due diligence, which is to protect them and their men so that they can wage war. And Moses is no fool. And that's why, like, you even hear about some people today in military, academies who do study the Bible, not for its theology, but for its tactics in war and how to do things correctly and how to do things not correctly. And this is an example of doing things correctly. You have to know what you're up against. God has chosen not to reveal everything as part of his test for the people of Israel. So as part of that, they succeed on an initial part, which is to do their job and figure out what they're up against. Figure out who's in these cities. How many of them are there? Is the land good? Are there trees in this area or not? Where should we not go? Like, let's get an idea of what we're up against so that when we do come into the land and fight, we're going to be in a better position than if we just waltzed in. And yeah, sure, God's on our side, but God didn't make us to be fools. God made us to be intelligent. He made us to be shrewd. And part of that is knowing what you're up against. So if we just go in our lives and say, well, God's got it, everything's going to be fine, we're going to be poor examples of his followers. We're going to be poor examples of people who we're going to look like idiots to the world. I mean, there's really another way to say it, is that look at this scenario. Look at this situation right here. These idiot Christians decided they were going to, work in this part of the country, or they were going to send missionaries off here, and then those missionaries die because, oh, by the way, that's where this terrorist organization is kept, or this is an area where Christianity is punishable by death. So if you're openly talking about the gospel in the middle of the market, you're gonna get murdered for it. Like, and then people make fun of that. Well, why shouldn't they? Because they did a foolish thing. Yes, the loss of life is terrible and all that, but it could have been avoided. So when it comes to all these things in our lives that we face today, we're not all going to be walking into some secluded area of the world that's hostile to the gospel. And some of us are. And for them, I pray for God's protection. I pray that they have capable training and that someone's been looking out for them. They did their due diligence. But what about us in our own lives? How do we treat the things around us? How do we treat the people around us? Do we just blunder into every conversation that we ever have and say, well, God's on my side. I'm on the right side of things. Therefore, nothing can go wrong. when there is plenty that can go wrong. You can say the wrong thing to someone because you didn't do your research, because you didn't know, hey, I'm going to crack this yo mama joke, and their mom literally just died the other day. Like, are you a great example of Christ when you're not making sure that the person you're talking to is, being cared for, is being looked after? Yeah, sometimes we're going to screw up and you don't have enough information, and some of that's not going to be your fault because you just walked into a situation and you weren't prepared for what happened. But I'm talking about in general, when we're talking about, hey, we're going into the city, we're going to go evangelize. Well, what part of the city are you going into? Are you going where there's been a lot of gang violence or something like that? Well, you can go in there and there's a place that really needs the gospel, but are you bringing protection with you? Are officers escorting you or something like that? That's something you have to think about if you're trying to reach these harder to reach areas. You've got to be safe. You've got to be not stupid. And that's what Moses is doing here. That's what we need to emulate in this idea, is this idea of, okay, God has given me a task. Let me do it correctly. Let me do it in a way that brings as less harm as possible to the situation, where I can reach as many people as possible. I can talk to as many people as possible. I don't step on any toes. I don't do anything wrong. I am, in fact, like Jesus. I am, in fact, working for him in a way that brings glory and honor to him and not me, and doesn't make me look like a total fool. Because when we look like fools, we make Christ look like fools. And here, the people of Israel are going to make God look like a fool because of their actions. And that's a huge repercussion for what's going on here. Like, we need to strategize our own lives. And I mean, like, everything. Like, you don't need to be retentive about every single thing, but I'm talking about, where do we go to work? How do we present ourselves there? Who do we talk to? How do we talk to them? All these things we need to worry about. Like, I'm in Chicago right now. I am very upset with the drivers in the city. It's far too aggressive for me. I'm just a good old country boy from North Kakalaki who don't appreciate these urban settings. I despise them in every way, shape, or form. But if I let that anger take control of me and I start flipping people off, well, I don't really look like a follower of Jesus in that moment, am I? I look like a person in the world. I look like someone who's not carrying the image of Christ as I'm supposed to. So we need to consider all these things when we go out into the world. We are in a constant war, both physically and spiritually. And I know some people out there don't like that it's phrased that way, that we're in a battle. That is a very personal philosophy of mine that I've had for quite some time. We are at war. I am a soldier at war in everything that I do, whether that's just hanging out with friends, whether that's doing this show, whether that's helping someone in need or ignoring someone in need. Like, I need to wage war, and I need to wage it well. And part of that is knowing how to be flexible, and then when things go wrong, how to make things get back on track. Part of that is going with the flow. Part of that is knowing what you're about to get into before you get into it. If we get into a situation where we're on someone's side because, well, they're our friend, and then we learn along the way, oh, I picked the wrong side because I didn't do my research. I didn't do my due diligence to find out, oh, actually, they're kind of a creep. Or actually, oh, they're a terrible person because I did X, Y, Z. Well, then I look foolish. And then by extension, as people know me as a person of God, God looks foolish. So just think about that. I'm not asking you to have a grand war map for everything in your life, but I am asking you all and myself to wage war well, to do so well for the sake of the gospel, for the sake of Jesus Christ, who is the one who saved us from ourselves. So go and bring that light as effectively as possible. And the most effective way to do that is to know how to wage this war well. So know your research, know who you're dealing with, know scripture, know when to give up. That's an important part of war too. There's a time to leave. So think about all of these things as we continue on. So we'll be going to verses 25 through 33. At the end of 40 days, they returned from spying out the land. And again to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation of the people of Israel in the wilderness of Paran and Kadesh, they brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told him, we came to the land to which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the Negeb, the Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the hill country, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the Jordan. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it." Then the men who had gone up with him said, "We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are." So they brought to the people of Israel a bad report of the land that they had spied out, saying, "The land through which we have gone to spy it out is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people that we saw in it are of great height. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them." So this is kind of why I'm a little upset I don't have time to go into 14.2 because, it follows naturally here, but we're stopping here and focusing on what's happening here. So thank you for everyone's patience in this regard. But for right here and now, the spies' reports are favorable until they focus on how much work it would be to take the land and how difficult it would be to control the land, to fight the people in the land. Caleb attempts to be the voice of reason, but he's drowned out by the negativity. And this is why the church fails multiple times over, because they listen to reason instead of reason, where they're like, well, we just don't have it in the budget, or, oh, that's just that part of the city that, God could never work in them. They're just lost. You talk about lost, they're lost. And there's no way they're ever going to find home. There's no one there that could ever walk on the narrow path to God. And then they give up. Before they even start waging the war, they call a truce. They call for a false peace with an enemy that doesn't recognize peace, that doesn't acknowledge peace. And it makes people lose their lives. They never once know Christ because the church gave up, because they never brought the gospel to them. And for here specifically for the people of Israel, they're not going to where they need to be. God has told them, "I've got you. We're going to get this done together." They have a guarantee that's far more than we've ever had in a lot of things in our own lives. And yet they falter because it's difficult, because they know how much work it's going to take to get it done. So they're scared. And yeah, there's a rationality behind the fear, but the rationality doesn't mean it's okay for them to be afraid. Who have they been working with this whole time? Who just got angry at them for complaining? Are our memories that short? Well, absolutely, yes. Their memories were that short. Our memories are that short. Remember the last time God saved you from something? When he delivered you in a way that was supernatural, in a way that never would have happened if he himself was not working behind it. And then the next time something adversity shows up and go, "Oh, well, he can't possibly do it again." Or we even forget that he did it in the first place. The people have forgotten their importance. But as we'll see in 14, Caleb and Joshua are going to be the ones that step up to the plate and say, "Look, let's get this done." Now, there's one other note here. You know how much I love the Nephilim. They're in this part. I want to touch on it briefly. There's speculation here of whether they're just lying and they saw tall people and they're like, "Well, we're going to have to call them Nephilim because, we heard of those Genesis stories earlier that Moses wrote down for our sake. Well, let's compare them to them, make people afraid." So that's something people bring up. Others are the belief that somehow they survived the flood. I think that highly unlikely. And then there's another group I kind of lean closer towards, which is, well, if it could happen before the flood, it could happen after the flood, or fallen angels intermingled with them and the Nephilim were the result. If that's the case here, sure. If not, whatever. Nephilim, they exist in the world. Whatever they are, sure. That's it for the day. I'm done. I'm sorry to end things so abruptly, but I do only have a short amount of time to get things done. So thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate everyone reaching out again to help me out and pray for our family as we're going a difficult time. So in light of all this, thank you once again for your help. As far as the show is concerned, please, if you get a chance, leave a 5-star review in your podcasting platform of choice with the help of the ratings there. Please share with a friend. Let them know what the show's about. If they're interested, send it their way. If you're interested in my own fiction writing, you can find my works at starvingwritersguild.com or on Amazon by searching for the name MC Ashley. If you're interested in some further solid studies into the Bible and its teachings, then check out the other members of the Anazal Ministries podcasting network. You can contact me at letnothingbepodcast@gmail.com. I'd like to extend a special thank you to Joshua Knoll for the editing that he does and for the music he has to the podcast. And with all that in mind, God bless you in accordance to his will and not mine, and allow me one more time to remind you, let nothing move you. Hey guys, are you interested in podcasting but don't know where to go? Well, check out Zencaster.com and go ahead and make an account there and use special promo code Let Nothing Move You, all caps. That way you can get 30% off of your next deal to go ahead and set things up so you can figure out how to edit stuff using Zencaster.com to host your stuff, to get things done there. So check out Zencaster.com, use special promo code Let Nothing Move You. All right, see ya.